Kingston Planning Board. Start with introductions. To my left, Peter Coffin. I'm Robin Duguay. I will be temporarily chairing the meeting this evening until Lynn Merrill arrives. Robin Carter, our land use administrator. Ellie Alessio is our selectman's rep. Chris Patno is planning board member, and Glenn Greenwood, our town planner. The first hearing that we will take on tonight is a continuance from the April 15th meeting. This is the Southern District YMCA, 67 Ball Road, map R25, lot 3. And the applicant is requesting amendments to the site plan to include the construction of 2 new small cabins. The property is currently operating as a non-conforming use in the single-family zoning district. So I don't know if there's someone here from the Y who would like to come up and talk about your plans.
Good evening, Michael Sanchez, Construction Operations Group, 14 Mechanics Row, Amesbury, Mass. I don't know if I need to do that, but...
Yes, you did, so thank you. I didn't have to tell you. That was lovely.
So again, my name is Mike Sanchez, and we have Reed here from the Southern District YMCA. We were continued because we are pre-existing non-conforming use, and we're sent to the ZBA, which we attended, I think it was last week, might have been the week before, and they granted us a variance relative to the construction of the 2 new cabins, or base camps as we call them. They are places where campers gather for their groups in the morning, evening, or if it rains. Again, we were approved by the ZBA. These cabins are really part of the refresh plan for the camp, and also adding ADA accessibility, which is limited with the current base camps or cabins that exist. And our goal, if you folks should see fit to approve us, is to have them up and operational in 20-something days.
Ambitious, but not impossible.
At least he didn't say 20-something hours, so I...
Yeah. Oh, Mike.
Microphone.
Thank you, Adam. At last month's public hearing, the board bifurcated this approval, sending the request to construct the cabins to the ZBA for necessary variance relief, and approved the construction of the bathhouse. In the interim, the applicant has gone to the ZBA and was granted the necessary zoning relief, bringing the applicant back to the board for meeting number 2. The board should make a motion to invoke jurisdiction on the plan. The board should also review the list of waivers being requested. And as with last month, I have no outstanding concerns with the approval of these 2 cabins in light of the ZBA action. I will prepare a letter of facts and findings to record at the registry for this approval.
I'll make a motion to invoke jurisdiction, so we don't forget that.
Thank you. Motion. Oh, I think Ellie beat you out of the game.
I think she beat you.
Oh, and I should have introduced, sorry, Rob Tersolo, also planning board member. So motion by Peter Coffin, second by Ellie Alessio to invoke jurisdiction. Any further comment or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And the list of waivers being requested is where?
They had a letter in the file.
They were accepted on.
Yeah.
They were accepted for the bathroom. So honestly, if the board just wants to say, we approve of all of the waivers requested for the cabins, as we did for the bathhouse, because we went through it extensively in the minutes at that meeting, you'd be perfectly safe.
So moved.
Motion by Peter Coffin, second by Ellie Alessio. Any further discussion? Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, yes, this is an extensive list of waivers.
And you went through them very diligently last meeting, so they're reflected in the minutes.
Thank you for that workaround. I want that back. And so with the sort of blanket waivers, the last item then would be to request that Glenn prepare a letter of facts and findings to recognize the proposed changes on the site plan. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All right. Motion by Peter, second by Rob. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
So
I
just
believe
really,
you're,
you should just do just an approval.
Okay.
Just a motion to approve the request for 2 new cabins, and as proposed.
Was that a so moved?
We don't have any new information being presented.
Oh, and we actually, you should actually ask if there's any.
We did bifurcate, and so we didn't do anything to the cabins, but public comment or.
Okay.
We should ask if there's public
All
comment.
right. Any public comment for the Y proposal at Camp Lincoln? No? All right, we will open and close public comment at 6:53. So then we're back to a motion to approve the amendments to the site plan to include the construction of 2 new cabins and the removal and replacement of the bathhouse.
Since you just read the whole thing, I'll say so approved again. I mean, so moved again.
I'll second.
Motion by Peter, second by Rob. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. You got some constructing to start doing, huh?
I'm going to change my clothes now. Thank you very much. You guys are a much happier planning board group than the city of Amesbury. I just want to say that. It's very nice. It's very refreshing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Good luck. Bye.
The applicant is proposing a mixed-use residential development of duplexes, townhouses. Welcome back.
Good evening, folks. My name is
Ooh, sorry. If you don't mind just pressing until the green comes on, you don't have to hold it. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Keith Martell. I'm here on behalf of Liberty Commons as the applicant of design review application that we have in front of you guys. We're to you, I think it was about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago last time we were here, and introduced a project at the corner of 125 and Depot Road. My understanding is historically it's been a project that's been looked at several times with some access challenges. We took a different perspective as far as access to it, and came out of a property a little bit further down Depot Road than I think you guys have traditionally seen. I'm not so great with faces to remember how many of you were here last time, so I'm going to kind of go over it from scratch as though you weren't, so I make sure I include everybody. I apologize if that's redundant for some of you. We have made a tremendous amount of changes to the project, all for the better. Originally, we had come to you guys with a project that was proposed predominantly of just duplex-style houses and then garden-style flats in 3 buildings. After learning that duplexes were not a permitted use at that time, we pursued a variance with ZBA, which was unsuccessful for both the height and for the duplexes. So we thank you guys for looking at that ordinance a little bit more. Along the way of trying to work within the confines of what we believe the ordinance was staying at that time, we've introduced a tremendous amount of diversity into the housing stock that we originally had. We now have 5 different types of housing stock within the property. We still have the duplexes. We still have 1 and 2 bedroom multi-family flats garden style condos. We have introduced some pods of, we call them courtyard communities, of more traditional townhouse style dwellings with it. Again, all 2-bedroom units with the exception of some of the flats being a single family. So we spread the gamut of smaller, more economical single bedroom flat all the way through 2,400 square foot first floor master duplex style unit. Our theme of the project remains the same. It's we had sought after the quintessential New England feeling community centered around a common green, much like your town has. We had tasked Michael Kim, who is our architect that was with us last time, at the time to do some land planning based off of scale of common greens and a look at some of the architecture that would frame in and appropriately anchor that common green so it would mimic the charm that we see in a lot of the towns that we drive through. My apologies, Michael is still with us as part of the project. He lost his mother yesterday and was not able to be with us tonight. So Brian and I are going to do our best at filling his shoes. Those are very big shoes for us to fill, so bear with us a little bit. There was a lot of work that was done. We have a lot of his pretty pictures, but his enthusiasm is just, I can't match that. You doing okay over there?
Yeah, sorry, we're just trying to get connected.
That's okay. There is a change to the team, and I'll take a minute to introduce Brian. We have Brian and Ian from his team that's not with us tonight. They're from a firm called Fuss & O'Neill. I was previously here with a different engineering firm. We were having some challenges just in communicating the type of community that we're seeking to develop and felt that maybe Brian and his team were a little better fit. They have a little bit more capacity as a firm. They understand the walkability that we're trying to achieve within the project. They understand the livability that we're trying to achieve with it. Ian, that's, I guess by definition, he's a landscape architect.
He's a planner, not a landscaper.
Has been helping us with a lot of what you're going to see in a minute of these courtyard communities. And his past experience involves larger master planned communities in various parts of the country, including celebrations in Florida, a plethora of them that I'm sure, Brian, you'll see him in his work as he comes through. Coming into it. So Brian is a new face to you guys. He's going to be handling the bulk of what we're going to go through, I think, together. Do you have any ability to get an old plan up yet?
No.
So previously, our neighborhood spanned the entire property. Do they have 11 by 17s or anything yet?
I don't have the 11 by 17s
Of the old plan? Okay, but you have an existing conditions. Yeah, that'd be great if we could just have that so that they can have something. As part of the new design, we've constrained the development a little bit towards the back. If you guys recall, the property was originally encompassed by 4 separate properties. The one in the far back was an old farm open field. We originally had a small leg of a cul-de-sac or hammerhead going back there with several duplexes on it. We've pulled that away in favor of the smaller courtyard communities that Brian's going to show you in just a little bit. And I think I'm reaching the point that I should be letting Brian talk pretty soon.
I think so. Unfortunately, yeah, we can't get this connected. I don't know. I gave him a flash drive. I don't know if you are you able to get that? Okay. No worries. Yeah, so.
Yeah, go for it, anytime.
So, yeah, my name is Brian Pratt. I'm a civil engineer with Fuss & O'Neill based in Manchester. And like Keith said, we are working on some revisions on this project. I handed out the 11 by 17 set, and I also need the point out the larger ones, but it's 85 acres. This is Depot Road right here, to 125, just to give you a little bit of sense of where we are. Kingston State Park. This is Grand Line Drive, and that's it. Speak towards the microphone. Sure, sorry. The next few pages are some vision documents. These are pretty similar. Actually, a lot of these are exactly the same that you've seen before. And this kind of gives you what the vision that Keith kind of talked about is.
The common green did not change from the last iteration that you guys had seen. And so it's a common green anchored, flanked by duplexes on either side and anchored by the larger multi-story buildings of flats. There's 10 units in each of the smaller ones, and I believe 18 in the center one. This was, now that I have some visual to go with my speech, I feel less. We had asked Michael for some land planning help going into it. This is some of the vision that he was able to pull in and encompass, and you can see through the black and white picture in the back, sort of that old New England buildings flanking kind of more of a center area, and in some of the more vivid pictures, you're seeing some of the monumentation that you often see in some of these common greens, perhaps a gazebo going in there, and some of the architecture that you would have seen flanking a common green had it been, one of the more historic ones built in the past. And we sought to maintain that. You saw that in the last proposal, and you still see that in this proposal as well. That area really hasn't changed. What you're seeing on this sheet here is a study that he did of various common greens that we felt achieved the feeling that we're after. You see, Woodstock, Vermont, Amherst, New Hampshire, Bethel, Maine, Hanover, New Hampshire with Dartmouth green, several of them going through. And what Michael did was studied those and sought to encompass the proper scale coming into the property so that we wouldn't have a small yard calling it a common green, and that we would be more appropriately sized to mimic the feel that we were after. This is an overview. I'm going to keep talking.
I can go.
Okay.
So this is in existing conditions. It's a compilation of 4 different parcels that summed together would create 85 acres. We have frontage here on Depot Road. I think previously you might have seen an iteration that tried to use the existing right-of-way along 125, but since then we've been able to obtain this piece of land to get some better access. Like I said, it's 85 acres. The little light lines or contours, there's not a lot of grade change. It's all pretty flat. And this light green shows wetlands. So you can see it's bound. So west is the top of the page. So it's bound to the west by 125, Depot Road down here, some vacant land to the east, and then Madison Ave, which is separated between a fairly large wetland complex.
I'm glad to hold the board if you want me to hold it for you.
I think I'm okay. So this is our sketch that our landscape architect and planner did. We worked really closely with his architect, Michael, to kind of revise it from the previous iteration. As Keith was mentioning, the previous plan included using some of the land to the back. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to create more open space and focus some of the density kind of closer to the front there. So what you see here is...
That sheet's missing a whole parcel.
Well, yeah, we blew up.
Yep, just for perspective, there's still an additional parcel that's not shown on that sheet that you did see us previously utilizing. I don't want it to give the impression that I was telling you that we could strain some of the development and it looks like we pushed it right to the line. It's just at that scale, it doesn't show the whole back.
Yeah, this is 150 scale to show the whole property, and then this gets down to, I think, 100 scale, so that you can see a little bit more of the detail. So like Keith mentioned, there's a whole slew of land to the back. All that wetland complex is all just open space and protected. So it's a little tricky when you see the flip between the two. So we have this split up. There's about 130 to 140 units, depending on how the final multifamily lays out. We carefully placed everything to try to avoid as many wetland impacts as possible. So we really limited wetland impacts just for the roadway crossings. We wanted to put them into pods so that there were these kind of little neighborhoods kind of distributed out. The density, using the multifamily ordinance, would be allowed a density of 4 units per acre. So that's where we're, 4 bedrooms per acre. So that's where we come up with the 255 bedrooms. And as Keith mentioned, there's 5 different housing types. So there's duplexes, there's townhouse, there's quad style units, and then there's the multifamily kind of flat units. So this is a nice pretty picture. We'll get back to this towards the end. So this is the site plan. This was in the original submittal that you saw. This just kind of shows some of your dimensional requirements, and it gives us a little bit more clarity on what we can talk about and see kind of the contours and the existing conditions. So access, this is a little bit different than what you've seen before. This is access off of Depot Road, and one of the concerns is that there's only one access point. So what we did is we turned this into more of a boulevard, which kind of creates almost 2 separate roads. So if you have an accident on one side, emergency services can use the other side. So that really helps, take away any concern with fire. And we did meet with fire, and fire was fully supportive of this. Then we have this loop road that kind of loops around, so it gives you 2 ways to get pretty much everywhere in the development, which is nice. Going up here, so these are our pods. So this is pod A, which is just 2 duplexes. Pod B is these 3 quad style units, and we'll show you some of the architecture shortly to show you what these look like. These are our townhouse units, and these 2 pods were really something that we're proud of. We worked really closely with our planner and landscape architect. These are kind of what Keith was saying was courtyard communities. So what we did is we pushed the roadways around the back, so your garages are in the back, and we have these really great central courtyards. So it's this great community space. You have farmers' porches that are fronting on here. So it's its own little kind of private courtyard for these units. Same thing up here, these are our townhouses. It's a little bit bigger. We have a little bit of gazebo in there, some trails, some plantings. So it's gonna be really inviting. It's gonna be somewhere people will really wanna go and sit on their porches and hang out there and interact with their neighbors. As we move up, this is pod D. These are duplexes and a quad unit. So the duplexes are just 2 houses, 2 single family homes attached together. These ones have garages attached to them. These ones will have more of an alley in the back. Again, we were trying to get the vehicles less centralized and get the more pedestrian focused. So we're pushing these kind of little alleys with some garages in the back. As you work your way down, this is our multifamily pod. This is pod E. So this is the 3 buildings that Keith was mentioning that each have 12 or 18 units each. Going across, this is our central green. So this is really the centerpiece. Some of that example information that we were showing you, like Amherst, New Hampshire, those kind of old-timey greens. We really wanted to have this central place that everyone in the development could really gather and use, and it's anchored on one end by a clubhouse. As you move further south, this is our pod F, and this is a number of duplexes. Again, we have kind of an alleyway with our garages, so your front of your homes face the green, your front of your homes here face this other road. We provide some on-street parking. We didn't want to have massive parking lots, so we really tried to share the parking. So we have some on-street parking, parallel parking that's in front of the homes that can be, double up as visitor parking or parking for, people using the green if there's a little event going on or something, or if you live, a little bit further away and you don't want to walk. As you wrap around, here's another type of townhouse unit. These ones are a little bit different. They have the garages in the front. And then as you wrap your way around, these are just a couple more duplex units. So phasing, we'll probably end up building the first part up to pod C, and the rest of this will be constructed in a future phase. And again, we did talk to the fire department about cutting this off, dead ends, and we ran the circulation through here. The fire truck can get to every driveway, so it's really a safe, well thought out development. There's a lot of amenities, and I'm actually going to flip back to this plan to kind of highlight the amenities. Like I mentioned, this is our central green, and this is just a first pass approach, but we have some walkways, we have some plantings, we have some kind of active and passive green space in the middle that, and this is quite large. I think, I forget exactly how big it is, but it's big enough it's like a field, like a sports field. Here's our clubhouse. And then we have, one of the amenities that I'm most excited about is some walking trails. There's a loop that like goes around the entire perimeter, and that's about 1 mile from start to finish. So you can take your dog, you can walk around, you can track your mile, you can do 2, hit it up. We have a dog park right here, so it's right off that outer loop, kind of set away from everybody, so it's not central, it's not, you know, you won't hear it as much. It's going to be screened with some vegetation. We have the clubhouse that anchors the green. There's some really cool views looking down the green from there or looking the other way, so it's really going to create, you know, a nice kind of downtown little feel. All right, so.
Can I ask you just one
Yeah,
question?
of course.
When you were talking about phasing, so the first phase will be exclusive of the main green, the clubhouse, and the large multifamily structures, right? That all takes place later.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, phase 1 would really be the boulevard, the mail house, pod A, B, C. That would kind of be the first, and this pod here, so. Yeah, it's pretty far back, and that's quite a bit of infrastructure to build, so they'll really have to do it in phases to build some, generate some revenue, then continue with the project. All right, so now the pretty pictures. So, can I steal this? Yeah, thanks. So our architect came up with some really good renderings and some floor plans to show you what these will look like. And he's not here, so he did give us some little bullet items. So I'm probably more just going to read on these than try to play architect. But these are the duplexes. They appear as stately single-family houses, traditional exteriors with modern open plans and master down arrangements, alley-loaded garages on some sites. So you can see it really fits in with that New England theme with the colors, the black and the white.
What we're after is trying to make it look like the traditional New England single-family colonial.
Okay. And these are just some floor plans. This is going to be the quad homes, and these are elevations. So again, same kind of visual theme.
It's funny because I think the back is just as good looking as the front, and I keep getting confused which is which.
Right. So these are 2.5-story, 4-unit buildings, each composed in a symmetrical arrangement facing a central court. Single garages face rear, wraparound front porches, interact with the courtyard garden. 3 quad-style buildings in pod B, and then there's 1 each in some of the other pods. So I'll kind of flip through what these kind of look like. So these are those kind of wraparound porches, which will really activate that central courtyard.
Right, and that's a good view of the courtyard, trying to show how the buildings frame it in and create a yard space central to it.
Yeah. And the other benefit here is because the central courtyards will be raised a little bit, it works with the septic ordinance. So we can get the septic for each of those pods in these central courtyards. So it's kind of minimizing on the amount of fill. We're going to try to avoid any of those mounded systems because we have relatively high groundwater here. So if we can work with the grades of the homes to get those courtyards kind of hidden with the septics beneath it, it's really a win-win. And these are the floor plans showing those. So you can see the 4 different units, and they each have a garage in the back. And these are the townhouses. So these are 3 and 4 unit buildings. They're in pods C and G. The raised contour of the central courtyard offer a reduced scale, 1.5-story face to the common pedestrian level, 2.5-story rear driveway entry, compact arrangement with open plan living, dining room, kitchen on the main floor with 2-bedroom under the eaves. So again, all the architecture will relate to all the different pods. It's all going to look like it belongs together. It looks like it built in the same time period. This is one of the multifamily buildings. This is building A. I think these are the 2 on this side.
That's the center
That's
one.
the center
the
one.
largest one that's anchoring the common green.
So anchor
There's
building
18
A.
units in that building, mix of single bedroom and 2-bedroom units.
So here it says anchor building A. This is the largest building situated on axis at the end of Liberty Common. scale needed to architecturally anchor the outdoor space. A cupola provides a landmark, and it's possible, there's some height limits that were, as Keith mentioned, which were in the zoning. So we're working on that to make sure that we're within the zoning ordinance there. And elevator building with 18 accessible 1- and 2-bedroom flats. So that's that center building right there. And then this is B, so these are similar but smaller. So this has 10 and 1- and 2-bedroom apartments with 2 units under the dormered roof, transitional scale with similar architectural features. Then this is a nice 3D rendering. This is pod B and C, so this is the pod with the quad units, and this is the pod with the townhouse units. So you can try to get a feel of how those courtyards, will really be activated in the middle of those units. And this is the view from the clubhouse. So this is kind of looking down that central green, looking towards the multifamily flats. The landscaping is still, we're going to work together with our architect, our planner, and our landscape architect to really nail that down. But this is kind of an idea of what it could look like. Then another view of the end of the green, looking across the courtyard with those multifamily buildings. And our buildings are angled in a little bit. These are represented a little bit further out because we've had a few changes to the plan to make sure we weren't impacting steep slopes and wetlands and whatnot. All right, so back to the engineering stuff. So traffic, obviously any project that has any significant number of units, traffic is going to be a concern. We did a full traffic study. It's actually going to generate quite less than you would expect. It's only going to generate, I think, 60 or 70 trips in the peak hour and about 1,000 trips per day. So we had a traffic engineer do a full traffic study. We'll submit that as part of our full application, but it's determined that there'll be no adverse impact to any of the surrounding street networks. We will need a DOT driveway permit, so the DOT will review that traffic study as part of our application as well. Parking. So, like I said, we didn't want to have any big parking lots in the middle. We didn't want this to be a parking-focused development. We wanted it to be pedestrian and people-focused. So, the duplex units will each have a garage with 2 units and some parking out in front of each unit. The Webster, these are the quad units. They have a 1-car garage and then at least 1 car. There we go. I love it. Perfect. Too far?
Very sorry about all that.
No worries, thank you. Perfect. All right. There we go. All right, so apologies for that. Let me get back to where we were. Sorry, where's the full screen? Sorry, I'm trying to just have it fill the full screen. Oh, well, I'll just zoom in a little bit. So I was talking about parking. So here, like I said, there's 1 car in the garage and 1 car outside. And then we do have a few kind of parallel overflow spots for visitors, so wanted to make sure that there was adequate parking. People weren't parking out on the street. Over here, the townhouse units, same thing. They have 1 garage unit and 1 space out in front. And then we threw a couple of parallel spaces, a couple spaces here at either end. And then up here, this is kind of a cool amenity that we thought might be valuable. It's an overflow parking lot, and it's primarily for people with like a boat or an RV or an extra car that they don't necessarily need to have. It's hidden off to the side, it's screened, so it provides the parking on site that people don't have to keep that right in front of their unit, so it kind of keeps them out of sight, out of mind.
How many spaces in that lot?
That has, I don't have it right here, about 40, I think, give or take. We have some oversized spaces in the middle for, you know, boat or an RV or something that they could leave there.
I just asked because in parking lots of that size, our regs require some internal
Okay.
landscaping requirements, so
Yep.
I'd just like you to look at those and see
Yeah.
how that works for your plan.
Yep.
Do you know what the threshold is for numbers?
It depends on, because it's a percentage, and you're placing this away from the buildings, which gets you the lowest percentage to begin with, so it might be something you want to even ask for a waiver for, but I prefer you first look at it and see if there's anything that can be done, but because it is not associated with buildings right on it, it's a lesser amount.
Yeah, maybe we could do a little bit of beefed up landscaping around it to try to screen it, and just maybe a little bit in the middle or something. We'll look into that, and we'll see if that's a waiver or come up with an idea there. Thank you. And feel free, if you have questions, feel free to jump in. I'm happy to elaborate on anything.
And when you show us parking lot that size paved, is that presumably has retention, the water drains in the middle or someplace that sloped in, or?
Yeah, so stormwater is going to be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah,
The seasonal high groundwater table is relatively high. We will have to get a permit from the Department of Environmental Services, alteration of terrain.
Okay, so that's down the line. Never mind.
Yeah. So basically, the thought is we'll most likely have like bioretention, rain gardens, gravel wetlands, stormwater ponds, pocket ponds. Those are designed to be in high groundwater.
yeah.
So we'll probably have some capture, some catch basins, and we'll probably have a small, stormwater pond right in this area here.
And while you're on that screen, I don't know, maybe Ellie remembers that piece of town property that's got a little black dot in the middle right up there. Yeah. Was there a reason that the town wanted to retain that for some reason? Or was that something that we were interested in selling? I think it came up one time.
If I could interject, we did visit selectmen to see if they would entertain the thought, just because it's so long.
It's sort of surrounded by, yeah.
And they were pretty adamantly against the thought of any sale.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what the reason was, conservation or something, but.
We don't give up
Yeah, nobody wants to.
There was talks about there was all sorts of random things
that's
that
right,
it didn't
yeah.
quite seem as appropriate for, but their vision would be different.
Okay, right, well, never mind. Obviously you've thought of that and given it consideration. And the other thing I wanted to know is that the current access road that runs along the frontage, is there any thought of making a connection from that parking lot over to that, so that there's a back doorway? I know you've increased the width of the current one-way.
So there is such a Pandora's box can of worms associated with that.
Another one, huh?
We, as near as we can tell, believe that title still rests with DOT for the express purposes of plotting a town street. So I do not believe, though this is my opinion with council, that we can lay a private gated emergency access down that road based off of the intent of its original plotting. I know that doesn't make sense, but.
You said it, I didn't have to.
But if the town wanted to lay out
Class 6?
some sort of pathway, would you be amenable to working with them?
I don't think you can. It's DOT that currently owns it, and the way that it was originally platted going through has an express reason for its use. So I think that I would need to petition for a change of the original purpose of its platting in order to do something like that. If I was doing anything less than giving you a town road down the middle of that, like every other application has been, then I believe I need to be back through state action in order to do it, which is, that's why I say it's just.
Kingston has most of 125 blocked off. I mean, you can only access like you would Crawley Falls up in Brentwood. And it was done specifically for that purpose to limit.
Limited access, yeah.
In this spot, they just plotted it down to such an awkward spot at the end.
And then on top of that is, if that's ever used as a road, there's also the issues that happen with the stacking of the cars.
Right.
That the DOT has been totally against.
Yeah, I think his thought was, you know, when you see it on paper, it makes sense just to have a secondary emergency access and.
That's what I would like to see.
Yeah,
It only gets used with a collapsible gate. and
If
only
you
in
guys
emergency.
held title to it, then I think that would have been an easier ask, but it was platted with a different intent than what we would be using it for. Secondary to that is we had the thoughts of just asking for it to be completely discontinued, but the selectmen wanting to retain that single lot prevented me from putting it under my total control and ownership, so it kind of has to remain for the purposes of, because selectmen could say, we pictured a road to X, Y, or Z, and now we have a private community inhibiting your access to the town-owned lot.
But you have a different select board today than you did a couple years back.
It was an adamant no.
Was that
I
right?
felt guilty for asking.
Oh, no, no.
Nice job, Selectman.
I wasn't there then.
I don't believe they saw just a good intentioned ask coming
Well,
out of it. They saw, like,
maybe
every
we'd
developer has an angle.
Maybe we'd surprise you today, who knows?
I mean, maybe what we could do is we could just put on the plans, we could show on our like side of the line that says, you know, construct emergency access road if the road is ever, built out by others, then we could, at least it'll be on the plans and then we could build it in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe just a thought.
It's the mess and legality and
Yeah.
two ownerships that,
Yeah.
and honestly, when we came with the property, everybody's like, oh gosh, stay away from that right of way. Oh gosh, stay away from that right of way.
I don't ever want to see it into the road because it's just too close to the intersection.
So we heard it here, we heard it from council, we heard it from the state level. I'm like, okay, let's stay away from that.
Yeah, from a safety perspective, I love the idea of having a secondary.
Just because,
Yeah,
I mean, if whatever catastrophe happens
Yeah.
on that first 200 feet of throat where
Yeah.
that's the only entryway,
yeah,
it would be nice if there was a breakthrough emergency
Yeah.
entryway.
yeah. That's one of the reasons that we converted this to a boulevard type with the center median. So if you do have a tree or something that falls down, it's most likely not gonna cover the whole road, so you can still use the other side. So it's a little bit safer than just say a 28-foot wide.
But when it's a swarm of killer bees that
Yeah.
doesn't care where the lines are.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I agree completely.
I watch too much 90.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I was going through parking. Back up here, we just, same thing, we have those rear garages in the back to try to keep the parking, you know, screened and hidden. Same thing for the multifamily, we just have some small parking lots that are away from the central green that are behind the buildings. So again, they're screened from public view for the most part. Down here in these duplexes, same thing, we have this central alley that has some garages in the back. We got a little bit of on-street parking. Down here, we just don't have the space to have the rear loaded, so these ones are front-loaded garages. Let's see. This page shows the wetland impacts. So like I mentioned before, we really tried to avoid wetland impacts as much as possible. These are all just unavoidable impacts because we have some wetlands that bisect the site. So we have about 7,000 square feet of impact. The biggest one is this kind of main roadway crossing. Same thing down here, it crosses the wetland, and then up here we cross a finger of that wetland. Up here is where we have our wells. So we have a small impact across a little finger of wetland there as well. We are proposing some trail crossings, which we were envisioning being more of like boardwalks that are kind of elevated above. Those allow animals and water to go beneath them. They have minimal impact because it's really just the poles that impact the surfaces. So we have initiated some contact with Fish and Game. We're setting up a pre-application meeting with the Wetlands Bureau to go through all of this with them, but we really do want to connect that trail system and have these little, you know, really minor impacts for these trails.
And from our perspective, with wetland crossings for either trails or roads, it's a conditional use permit for the planning board that does require feedback from the Conservation Commission. So we generally expect that you will meet with them before you come to us for that conditional use permit.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
Done most of the local departments and then decided that we'd stop here first and then go disperse to appropriate boards from there, just to make sure that you guys are on the same mindset with the overall vision before we talk specifics with conservation or what have you.
Yeah, one of the things that we're kind of working on now, and we're going to hit it pretty hard after we get some feedback here, is the stormwater. So because I mentioned the high groundwater table, it makes the stormwater a little bit tricky. There's also a wetland buffer of variable width, depending on the wetland. So we have anywhere between a 50 and a 65-foot wetland buffer, and any buffer impacts require zoning board approval that aren't like associated with a trail or a road. So we'll likely have a few minor impacts for that. We don't have those like fully designed just yet, because we really have to design the full roadway system before we can figure out where the stormwater goes. So like I said, we're going to minimize those. We're going to keep them to just where it's absolutely necessary to impact buffers. And then we'll meet with Glenn and catch up with the town engineer and go to the Conservation Commission, then go to the zoning board, and then we'll finish the design and be back here and working with the state on all the state permits that we need as well.
We have more than 20 days like that poor last guy. He was an ambitious fellow. He was changing for work.
Yep. So this is good though, only 7,000 square feet of impact. We don't exceed the 10,000 threshold, so it's a relatively minor wetland permit application. Now the logistics on how we actually keep these people alive. So the water system, it's about 38,000 gallons per day that are expected to be generated by the homes. We're working right now with DES. We've submitted an application on a conceptual level for a small community water system. The two wells that we're proposing are up in this area right here. And then there's also some backup locations for wells in the back. These need 200-foot radii, and they need to be completely undeveloped within those, so they have to stay natural. So we do have two locations, which is good. That'll help our...
The proposal is that the entire water demand on the site is only 38,000 gallons
per day.
Per day.
Yep, 100.
So it doesn't even meet the threshold for a large groundwater withdrawal.
Even with our irrigation, we've already met with an irrigation company, and even with the irrigation, we think we can stay under that 57,000 to keep it as a small community system.
My understanding.
I never thought you could do that.
Yeah, it's 150 gallons per day per bedroom, and plus a small additional flow for the clubhouse. So
it does sound like we're held to a lot of the protective rules of a large system. We just don't have the public hearings, that portion of the permitting.
Yep.
So essentially they say, build it just like one, but we'll make it a little easier to permit.
Yep. So we did get that submitted, so we expect some conceptual feedback in the next few weeks on that. So that's one of our big things. We do have to get in and drill those wells. Once we get conditional approval or conceptual approval, the next step is to actually drill those wells. So we do have a temporary wetland impact that we'd be submitting an application for to get the drill rig over there to drill those wells and test the wells. So that's this small impact here, which would be temporary to begin with, and if the wells are good, then we'd convert it to a permanent impact. The septic systems, like I mentioned, we have some relatively high groundwater, so we did actually take some time and try to figure out where we could fit these septic systems. So the first two, we could probably fit a small system just up in here. It will unfortunately be mounded, but it'll be in the backyard. This courtyard, like I said, one of the reasons we flipped the driveways, besides aesthetic, was to kind of double up on the fact that these will have to be raised up so you can hide those septic systems inside. These magenta lines are the nitrate setbacks. So this is an aquifer protection, so we do have to do a hydrogeologic study, and we're limited on the amount of nitrate concentrations at the property lines. So our well designer is also working on a hydrogeologic study right now. They're going to do some baseline testing. We have some courtyard, this courtyard will have some leach fields in it, and then we probably will have another mounded system over here. And then another small system for one of the buildings back here, but the bulk of these will most likely be a gravity system to a mini wastewater treatment plant that'll be on site. That will help reduce the nitrates. And then that will pump up to a large leach field up in this area. So again, out of sight, out of mind. We'll have an access drive to it, but because of the high groundwater and the relatively flat terrain, made it really difficult to get leach fields in the green without, you've seen them around town, the big mounded ones with the candy canes. So we wanted to kind of avoid that and push it to the outskirts. So by pulling the development in, we previously had some development up in this area, really opened up some opportunities for us to kind of hide that up there. We also will have some stormwater up in that area as well, potentially. We're still working on those. Yeah, stormwater is the next on my list. So kind of talked about this a little bit earlier because of the high groundwater. We're going to have to be creative with our rain gardens, our gravel wetlands, our stormwater ponds. Most likely what we're going to try to do is try to do one large system, like a stormwater pond up here that captures all the flow for the bulk of the development. And then the hope is that we can do kind of smaller, rain gardens at each of these pods. But vegetated buffer strips, that sort of stuff. Try to really keep it minimal, natural, and aesthetically pleasing. This is our temporary access road. So, like I mentioned, one of the critical paths is the well. So, once we receive conceptual approval, like I said, then we have the ability to go drill the well. So, this is a plan just showing kind of a temporary access. The field is pretty mushy. So the drill rig, unfortunately, they don't come on tracked vehicles. They have tires, so you really have to build a little gravel road out there. So this would just be kind of getting rid of, it's a farm, so it's really mushy, deep loam. We'd basically have to just scrape that loam out, fill it with a nice compacted fill, do a temporary wetland crossing with some of those swamp mats like Eversource uses to get over there. And that's would be kind of some work. So if you see us out there with a machine, we're not just building the whole development, we're just testing the wells. We have a number of permits associated. Like I said, alteration of terrain, that's the stormwater, wetlands for the wetland impacts, water supply, like I mentioned, subsurface, each of these systems would require a septic permit. Subdivision, technically, we'll have to get a subdivision approval from DES because these will be condos. Driveway permit, this is Depot Road is a DOT road, so we'll need a driveway permit from them. As you know, we'll need a site plan / subdivision from this board. Conditional use permit for the multifamily to use the multifamily ordinance. Conditional use permit for the wetland impacts for the roads and the trails. As I mentioned, the variance, we'll need a variance for any buffer impacts associated with the stormwater or any of the development. Attorney General permitting for the legal stuff, and for construction, we'll need to get a SWIP permit from EPA.
Just so you're aware, even though it's on a state road, we require a town-issued driveway permit as well.
Yep.
So you'll want to talk with the driveway department.
Yep.
Department.
We met with New Road agent.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, that actually.
Thank you for making us aware of that.
Yeah, that ties in really well. So we did meet with the DPW. One of the waivers that we'd be requesting is the ordinance requires that even private roads be built to town road standards. So one of the waivers that we'd like to get feedback from you is to build mostly just the radii. The roads are built with like really wide radii, and that promotes people driving relatively fast. We really want people to not drive fast, so we really purposely tightened up these radii. We also want these to be private roads. We don't want these to be public. We don't want them to ever be public. So if we do get a waiver from the town's like radii standard, then it kind of guarantees that the town would never, that the association could never come back and ask the town to take it over. We want it to be private for a number of reasons. Like I said, it's safety. We want it to be small. We're going to build them to the town standards, like the gravel depths and the pavement depths. We want them to last, but plowing it would be an absolute nightmare if the town was responsible for the main roads and the development was responsible for the interior. So it really makes sense that this is private, stays private. So that's one waiver that we'd be requesting from this
And
board.
even with the reduced radii, the fire apparatus is all copacetic.
Yep, we met with the fire
And we'll
department.
get a letter from the fire department
Yeah,
saying that.
yeah, they really liked the development. We ran a turning template of their fire truck. They gave us their actual template, and the fire truck can get to every single unit on all the main roads. I think even most of these like alleys in the back, I think the fire truck could make it through there. So we'll continue to work with them, get a formal letter when we do the real submittal. But the initial meeting we had with them was very positive. They gave us some feedback. They want the trails to be at least 4 feet wide so they can run their emergency ATV out there if somebody breaks an ankle or something. So they gave us some good feedback and.
Or the killer bees again. So.
Yeah. Yeah, they're coming back. I'm sorry? Yes. Yep. Yeah, we haven't figured out exactly where, but we want to make this very walkable. So there will be sidewalks pretty much everywhere. Not every single road, I don't think, and probably not both sides, to kind of keep it more natural. But on top of the sidewalks along the road, like I mentioned, we'll have trails. So we kind of have these trails like cutting through the middle. So if you're down, say at the mail building, you can walk right up to the clubhouse and get right to the central green without going along the street network. So those are interior connections, like to this pod right here. There's another trail that goes up and it'll kind of loop around. The plan is that the trail would run through and there'd be kind of maybe pergolas or gazebos or something. So we really want to promote a lot of walkability and pedestrian connectivity between all these pods.
I saw that all the trails were to
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam. I saw that all the trails went to the mailboxes, which I thought was a great idea for people going midday for a walk to get their mail.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, if I lived there, it's good to have a reason, right? Look at my mail. We met with fire, we met with DPW. DPW, he liked the layout. He was very supportive of not being a public road, so he wants this to be private. He would, he would be supportive of this board granting a waiver, with the condition that they remain private forever, which that's what we want to, so. Fish and Game, we did submit the initial application to Fish and Game. We received some initial comments. We're working on setting up a pre-application meeting with DES. Let's see. All right, I went through that.
So you said before that your utilities are running under the roads. Your utilities are running under the roads, so when you have a wetlands crossing, it's integrated into the bridge?
Yeah, the road, we haven't designed the culverts and stuff yet, but we'll figure that out. But yeah, there's no overhead.
Everything's up.
Yeah, we're not putting on anything overhead, so we'll figure out a way. DES, we're going to meet with our wetland scientists and meet with DES and figure out, what they want for box culverts and spans on these wetlands. We haven't done the hydraulic analysis, so I don't know exactly how big they need to be sized. But basically, the big one is this one right here in the middle. That one looks like it has a fairly good flow. There's a culvert that comes out from under 125 that runs through the site. So I think it's a 40-inch culvert up at 125. So we'll have to have, some small box to let the critters get through and let the flow pass. And yeah, we'll, depending on the height, we'll either be way under it or above it. So I think we covered most of it. I'm really excited. It's a great project that I'm really excited about. I love that I have my landscape architect and my planner designing all these courtyards. I personally am on the board of directors for a nonprofit, and we promote, placemaking, live, work, play, all that sort of stuff. So this is like right in line with what I do for my nonprofit, and working with Keith and Anna, they're very passionate about this. It's going to be a great place to live. I would want to live here. It's going to have that community feel. It's going to have a really good mix of unit styles. It's kind of filling in. Kingston has a lot of 3 bedrooms or above, so this will really fill in a lot of that gap of the ones in the 2 bedrooms that are missing in the community. And I think, I think it's a great place that people want to live. A couple things we're we want to get from this board. I know we're just the design review, but we want to just get your overall thoughts on the layout, see if there's anything that, you have any comments on, suggestions that we should tweak now, because now would be the time to change. We want your feedback on the waiver for the roadways being private. And because of the variance need for the wetland buffer, we know that you really have to have a strong case for a variance. We don't have the exact locations and all the buffer impacts yet, but I was talking to Robin earlier, and you need a denial in order to be able to submit for a variance. And I believe this board, she said this board usually does those denials, but she said that you could potentially delegate that authority to Glenn, that we could submit something to Glenn, and Glenn, I don't know if she mentioned this to you, but basically just showing the plan, showing the buffer impacts.
But we do that frequently. So.
Yeah, so I think basically we just want the board to, weigh in if that's okay, if that's something that we could just work with staff to get them to issue the denial, to get us to go to the board so that we don't have to go back to this board a second time before the ZBA.
Can we talk for just a minute about your business model?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Can we talk for a moment about your business model? Last time when you came before us, you had, even though it says on page 2 of your plan in the density calculation that there will be apartments, you had said they were going to be condos, so is the apartments a misprint?
It was, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's when you build those flat ones, everybody wants to call them apartments.
And I mean, the board's going to talk about this a little bit, but from the get-go, I said the last time I saw this, other than that duplex issue, it was the best designed project I've seen, and it's only gotten better. You guys have put a ton of thought into this project.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before ever coming to see us with something formal, there's been more put into this project than in many of our regular applications, and it's really, it's really commendable.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, we understand that, it doesn't make sense to just jam the density in and just, don't give the people amenities. Keith said to me when he first hired me was, he wants to create something that people will want to live, and it'll be valuable because people will enjoy the amenities, they'll enjoy the courtyards. So you won't have that like dense urban feel. It'll really have
that. From the nerd side, they know our regulations and our ordinances. They really look at them. And there's a ton of projects that we see that don't do that for us.
Thank you.
I think, oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say it's been, whatever, a year or so since you were last here, and I think this proposal, more than any other, we've sort of been asking, like, when's it coming back? What's happening with that? So I think I'll just echo what Glenn said. We're all very excited to see you back.
It's a short hiatus, team change, and,
Yeah.
and some rule changes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your patience on that.
Yeah. Well, we're ready to hit the ground running. This is kind of our last piece that we were waiting to get some feedback before we really started going full steam ahead. So I'm excited to get going.
So have you done similar projects in another area that we might be able to take a spin through and just take a look and see how they turned out, and maybe speak with those communities to see how well they
We're
work
in
with
New
you?
England. Nobody does anything fun. Everything is the old, like in a row. So I think you'd be hard pressed to find another one in our state that mirrors that type of look that we're trying to achieve in this one. It's just New England's stuck in the mud a little bit.
Yeah, I was down in Charlotte, North Carolina recently, and there's all these kind of courtyard neighborhoods. They're building it out, they're planning it, they're doing it the right way. And it's, you can't throw a stone without hitting one of these, but like Keith said up here, it's either single family homes or it's, apartments.
Going a little more out on the limb for New England.
Yeah.
You mentioned you had a project in Florida or something, or is this project like this in Florida?
So my landscape architect, Ian, he actually sits in my Schenectady, New York office. So we've used a lot of virtual meetings. And he's done a lot of stuff in Florida. I think he actually did work in Celebration, Florida. Yeah, and I can potentially find some examples that you could like Google too. I can share that with staff.
Well, it's such a large project, it's always nice to know of something similar that you've done so that we could
Yeah.
make
Problem
people
is
in
we're
town a
trying
little
to
bit
be
more
different.
comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I've done, you know, a number of, over the years, I've done a number of like single-family home developments. I've done Mill Pond in Londonderry, but that's just a single-family home. There's no duplexes, there's no
I think we
courtyard
can run
stuff.
through a repertoire of single-family homes, but
Yeah,
to pick New Hampshire, courtyard communities, New England, common green, I don't think you could put those filters on any neighborhoods out there. Gravel.
yeah.
I keep hearing apartment, a condo, apartment, a condo. It happened the first time.
Condo.
Okay, all right. 'Cause
Yep.
It's a good
I keep
perspective
hearing
for
it
me,
too.
right, and, I mean,
100%.
30 apartments.
No,
Causes me.
100% for sale condo. Our intention between introducing some of those buildings of flats that engineers keep wanting to call apartments is really for a diversification of housing stock and to be able to appeal to a much lower priced side of ownership. You know, you have snowbirds that are back and forth, things like that, and that's really the intention behind them.
And that, I mean, it's a good point, and we should mention that from the regulatory side, when we see a condominium development, there are those aspects that we have to see. We have to see a condo plan.
Yep.
We have to see those condo documents.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
know that you guys are, when you mentioned that you're gonna have Secretary of State approval, I know that you understand all that, but I just wanna make sure that I say it so I can say, I did mention this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, we
So
appreciate
those are
it.
things we'll need to
Yep,
say.
absolutely.
I think one of the things that struck me the most about this particular development was the architectural design of the buildings.
I wish Michael was here to share his own work, because Brian and I can't do it any justice. Thank you for noticing that.
But when I saw it, what I saw was something very similar to Shaker Village.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
something that also seemed very much Kingston's historic
Yeah.
look. And if you can maintain that as you go through the project, I think that would be excellent. It really made it feel like a Kingston project. It's sort of fitting into the town with the architecture, more so than many other projects that have been proposed.
Thank you for noticing. That really was the intent. I think I shared the story last time I was here that we can blame your local, what is it, 1686 House Restaurant? Because it's Kingston's Green just struck me that night when I went out to dinner there with my wife one night, and I'm like, this is just so cool. And we've sought to recreate it several times, and properties didn't lend themselves. They weren't condos. Everything was single family. And it was ironic that the opportunity presented itself in Kingston to recreate what originally put that seed in the back of our minds.
I love the windows in the houses, absolutely love the windows.
Thank you.
So different, and yet it makes a dimensional look
Yeah.
stunning.
Michael really did a great job with the architecture, and he took, when Anna and I met with him and said, we want to create something really New England. No, you got to go through Kingston. You don't understand. It feels really old New England. Like, you got to stick with that. And boy, he took that 100 times to heart, more than I could have ever thought that he would have. He impressed us when we originally engaged him prior to even taking on the project. He insisted to meet me on site, walk the land with me, jumped in my car, took a drive around Kingston, said, show me the parts that you keep talking about, showed him some of the architecture. He said, show me what everybody else builds around you. Just did a absolutely most thorough job I've ever run across from a professional. And I'm sad for his loss, but I'm more sad that he really did a great job with bringing this vision to life, and he wasn't able to be here today.
Yeah, and he's been working really well with our
So
landscape
thank you for
architects.
noticing him. My guess is he was disappointed.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a really good team effort with him, our planner, and our landscape architect, and a little bit of the engineering.
Right.
It's mostly them at this point, but yeah, it's
There's gonna be a lot for you to do.
yeah. I'm up after this. So.
With the water table remaining on the
Basements. The question was, will there be basements with the high ground
Yes,
water
ma'am.
table? Yeah.
Yes, so the townhouse style units, can you show me those?
You want these, or you want the
architecturals?
The architecture, yeah. You want these, or?
the actual buildings, but that pod, which is kind of the center pod, I guess we would call it, is the area where the water table is actually the highest and the grade is actually the flattest. So water table is very easy for us to deal with just foundation drains. The problem comes when you can't naturally daylight those foundation drains and get them to go somewhere, and that's the case in that center area. That's why by design, the left-hand side of that right there, that elevation is actually the back of the building, and those garages are on a slab going in. But when you go to the front of the building, which is his right-hand side, what we've done is your groundwater protection ordinance requires a higher separation to water table. So we used the septic systems set higher up, and rather than looking at a mound with a big pipe, we used them as fill to anchor in. So those, I guess by definition, are kind of slabs on grade, and it was suited to that area. The other areas we can do okay with regular basements.
Yeah, out in the duplex area back here, we do have some grade change, so we'll be able to daylight some foundation drains to make full basements on those.
It was neat how we were able to utilize the higher separation to water table for your septics and the courtyard community to make a slab on grade not look like a super tall building.
Yeah, they're almost like walkouts. It's kind of how they'll look, or drive unders in the back.
I still can't tell the difference in the back and the front.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, you did good.
Any other thoughts, questions, comments from the board?
What is the board's take on the private road issue?
That's always been a third rail in the past, and it's because of the radii issue is easy to deal with because that was all based on fire turning radius, and the gravel and stuff, the layers you talked about meeting those standards was an issue if they ever became a town road, and the problem with that was the communities that once they become fully owned by the members, they try to get the town to take over, because this has a lot of bridges. It's very expensive maintenance, especially if the bridges, that's why I was asking the question about incorporating the conduits and water in there, because we got an estimate from DOT on a project towards Portsmouth. It's tripled the price because they had sewage and water mains and stuff in the bridge. The bridge repair tripled the price because they couldn't cut that off to the communities beyond. Yeah. So that would be an extraordinarily expensive town road project. I don't know if you've got the capital in there to be able to put a maintenance fund in or whatever, but that would be the problem with reducing the standards. But I think if the deed is written up so that it can't be a condo issue in the future where it can go to the vote of the town, that it's absolutely deeded never to be a town road. I think as long as we consult our attorney and get some kind of guarantee that this couldn't ever come up for a vote for a town road, I would be fine with it. But that's been an issue in the past, and it's because of problems we've had in the past.
I think you shared that last time.
I think we did, probably, yeah.
And my takeaway from the last time that we were here was that we needed to have some good legalese to bulletproof it. And then we talked about the irony in building a private road to a town standard and then expecting the association not to ask the town to take it. And we had this conversation with the road agent as well at that time and this time, and felt that one of the best defenses was making sure it looked nothing like a town road, to be honest with you. Your concern in terms of some of the financial aspects of it, because we are selling them as condominium units, the New Hampshire Attorney General Consumer Protection Division has to issue us a registration When it's this number of units, that registration process is very thorough, very cumbersome. And one of the things that they're acutely aware of is to make sure that a developer is not going in and setting an association up for a future failure, which is exactly what your concern was coming into there too. So the budget, we're required to support the budgets with documentation and make sure that the reserve accounts are adequately funded for the lifespans of each of the improvements for which they are. It's not just, yeah, they got something for plowing in there anymore. That's probably a 6+ month process just to get through the paperwork to demonstrate to them that we're not doing what your concern is. And that's unique because they are condos as opposed to a rental community or something like that that wouldn't need that registration.
So, because there was one condo association years ago that did try to have their roads become public roads.
I heard.
Even though they were not to town standards, it did not go through. And there became a lot of paranoia that it might happen. But I think that the reality is condo docs are condo docs. Condo docs say they're going to be private, and it says it throughout the condo docs. So they can't really change the condo docs if that's the way it was accepted. A lot of our condo developments that have been built in town since that time that required being built to town standards and required these super wide roads and then certain types of drainage that really didn't work well, does provide for a lack of community look and community feel and walkability, and it does indeed make for a less attractive community and a faster driving community. So I think I would be all in favor of private roads built to town standards with the exception of the width. And where you're going to do sidewalks, that's going to really take that shoulder and make it usable rather than just...
Most areas that we would reach your standards are for a higher level. Like I imagine you're going to want to use some closed drainage, some granite curbing to enhance it.
Yeah.
And from your road agent perspective, he wants gravel shoulders with open ditches that I can just swing this. It's just they conflict with each other. Honestly, it's not that it's a cop out for cost. It's more expensive for us to build. It's just, thank you, not the right look.
And the radii is one of the bigger ones, the tighter radii. We want to promote, traffic calming and slowing things down where, if you have a 300 or 400 foot radius, somebody can just fly through there, but you tighten that up to 100 or 200 or a 50, even a 50, people have to slow down, so it's a lot safer.
It's far better to do it with the design of the road than having to add speed bumps.
Exactly.
And that sort of thing.
Exactly.
So you just mentioned plowing. I guess one thing when I was flipping through was thoughts about where snow may go, given the wetland areas as well as sort of the layout of the circles.
Yeah. When we get into a little bit more detail of the design, we'll designate some snow storage areas that make sense. We can put them on the plan and just scatter them out, and the plow drivers will do whatever they want. So we do try to design them where the plow drivers actually would put them, and maybe not have a whole bunch of trees like right at the end of a row. So we'll have that on the site plans that we submit. And oftentimes, some winters you end up just getting so much snow you have to truck some of it off. So that's always kind of a note on our plan, is if it starts to obstruct sight distances and it becomes a nuisance, then it has to be trucked somewhere else.
So it sounds like the question about the variance for the wetland buffer impact was answered to the extent that we can answer that, right? Sounds like private road with some ironclad legalese. That could be...
At the appropriate time, we'll engage our council and town council, and I'm sure they're both smarter than me with some legalese.
And in general, the concept, it sounds like you've been getting rave reviews for. So during a design review, do we have public comment? Okay. So if anyone in the public would like to comment, now's the chance.
I just couldn't hear. How many units did that?
I don't know.
If you...
The question was how many units would there be? So it's probably 130 to 140, depending on how many 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms end up in the flats. phases was the next question. Yeah, it's, no worries. It'll likely be.
Do you mind actually, if you could come up, and say your name and address?
Oh, sure. My name is Carrie Trainer. I live in Lamprey Road, right off of Rock Rimmon, and I go by Depot Road all the time. I think this is a fantastic idea. I think it's great for Kingston. My other thing is ballpark. How much do you think these condos, townhouses are going to cost? Do you know by any chance? You don't know. Okay.
So the advantage that we have to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can come in. You too. So I don't know the exact dollar numbers until we get a little further through some of the costing. But what we designed, some of the single bedroom flats are, from an economy standpoint, they're cute, tight little units to build that are very economically efficient. So I do think that we achieve a price point that's sub $300,000 on any of those. And then our duplex styles, he put some nice pizzazz into them, and they have the ability to go up to 23, 24, 2,500 square feet in them. Those will lift that a little bit higher, and what I'm doing is trying to bracket it for you a little bit there. But I'm sorry, I don't know the exacts of those yet. It's our target was.
All right, public.
You got one.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, Kevin Graney, Greaney, 42 Depot Road. One quick question, as far as water usage. You mentioned 38,000 gallons. Is there anything the planning board, I hear that and I worry about my well going dry. Is there any protections I'm afforded? What if they double it, kind of thing?
That's a separate permit that's required to be issued through the state and through DES, and their concerns in permitting are your same concerns going through. So Brian can probably expand on some of the safeguards that they have to, what do I have to do for permitting groups?
So we have a separate water system designer. She's really the expert on all this, but it's a robust,
I believe they do a butter monitoring, correct?
I believe they do. I can't be 100% sure. But we are gonna,
I'm
do
not
it.
100% sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have volunteered to that easy.
Yeah, sorry.
My experience with this in other towns is that they do actually let abutters, the state lets abutters know when the 24 or 48-hour well pumping tests are going to take place. And I think that they put a parameter limit how far away from the well that they will monitor private wells, but it's a fairly reasonable standard, and it does, in my other communities, it has included a number of abutters, and their wells are tested at the very same time to see if there's drawdown impacts.
That's what I was.
So it's actually it's a.
I remember in the proposal from the well lady, but
it's a fairly rigorous permit at the state level.
Thank you. I'm sensitive to that because my girlfriend's house has a well that only generates 1 gallon per minute, and we were trying to fill the pool the other day. We had it going for like 2 or 3 hours. We knew, don't go too long, and we went a little too long. So luckily there's a kill switch on it that kills it, but we've had to replace all the little, the aerators on all the sinks because they get clogged with sediment whenever that happens. So I am sensitive to that.
Any other questions, comments from the public? Seeing none.
Glenn, can we talk a little bit more about the temporary access to go drill that well?
Yeah.
Can you bring that plan up real quick? I don't know that requires any board input, but I certainly want to be forthcoming with us accessing. Can you zoom in on the entrance portion of it? You can see the existing tree line, that is an open farm field where we're going through. But I think I'm technically in a portion of a wetlands buffer. I do not need to disturb any vegetation getting into there. Do I need anything from this board? I don't want to do the shock and awe of send a big excavator out there and have somebody caught with their pants down answering a question.
Yeah, we should probably do an application for a conditional use permit to do that access crossing within the wetland buffer.
Okay.
It would require a public hearing, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I just want to be as forthcoming with it as possible so that we don't drop equipment out there and find out that we didn't talk about it enough when I was here. It would,
I think we should count on doing that.
yeah, to get out of the buffer, I clear cut the trees to the property line, which doesn't feel like the right answer. And it's open right now.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions? No? Seeing none, it's my understanding that there's no action for us to take other than the feedback.
No continuations to call for, so.
Great. Awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate the great feedback, and we're really happy to see that you're excited just like we are. So we're looking forward to getting going. We'll get that conditional use permit, so you'll see us pretty soon with that. And we'll get going with, Concom, the town engineer, the ZBA, the state permits, all that pre-application stuff, and we'll be back hopefully, not gonna put a timeline, but hopefully, months, not years, yeah.
Last guy was building camps in 20 days. I don't know what this guy's talking about.
Thank you very much.
I think you're gonna hear that a lot.
Yeah, I know.
That is an improvement, right? That's a quality of life improvement.
The third application for this evening is Caden Connell Excavation. It is 1 Meeks Road, map R13, lot 7. It's in the commercial 3 zone. It's also in the aquifer protection zone. This came before us a few years ago, and we permitted a use there, and it was never constructed. So,
one thing before we open the hearing on that, I just want to make a motion that the board agrees that this doesn't qualify under any of the criteria for development of regional impact. And that's a motion.
is that a motion?
Yeah, motion.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay. All those in favor that this does not create a regional impact?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no regional impact. Thank you very much. And here we are. So, if you would please introduce yourselves and tell us who you represent and carry
Carlos
on.
Hilch from SEC and Associates, and I'm with Caden Connell from Connell Excavation LLC. And if you prefer, I'll just kind of run through this. I get a brief overview, and then field any questions you may have. So, as I said, I'm here on behalf of the applicant, which is Connell Excavation LLC. This is Caden Connell, as well as the owner of the property, and that's Jennifer Lynn Rogers Ward, Kelly Ward's wife. If you remember the previous application, Kelly Ward accompanied me, and it was basically for his business. So this is a site plan application for the previously re-upping, basically the previously approved proposal that was approved for Kelly Ward back in 2018, more or less caters to fit Connell Excavation's needs here. So the subject property, I'm sure everybody's pretty familiar with, is identified as tax map R13, lot 7. It's located at 1 Meeks Road. It's a 2.5 acre property. It has 221 feet of frontage on the south side of Meeks Road, and it has 179 feet of frontage on the east side of Route 125. So it's the corner lot right on 125 and Meeks Road, right across the street from the large service station and gas station. So the parcel itself is undeveloped. It's surrounded by commercial properties on the northwest, and on the west there is one residential property, and that's on the northeast, and then you have the campground, of course, on the south and east side of the property. The lot's entirely within the town of Kingston's Commercial 3 zone, as well as the Zone B Aquifer Protection District. There's a small amount of wetlands on the lot. You can see that on sheet 2, which is the existing conditions plan. It shows you up on 3 and 4 as well, kind of in the southeast, northeast side. That was delineated by Michael Seecamp back in 2018. It consists of a poorly drained forested wetland with a vernal pool located internally. Mike has taken another look at it. He's held his original delineation. He had submitted for us a buffer report that still holds, and sent that along with the application. Mike's confirming that everything's still the same as it was back in 2018. So the remainder of the lot consists of general slope, basically sloping from Meeks Road down to the southerly end of the property. The site did support a single-family home. I don't know if you remember that. It's in quite a state of disrepair. Had a driveway access right off Meeks Road. That's since been raised, so now it's a vacant lot. But it did support a single-family home at one time. So the proposal that you have before you remains basically the same as it was in 2018 when we came in with Kelly Ward. Caden, as I said, is the owner and operator of Connell Excavation LLC. They are a contractor business, and what he would like to do is purchase the property from the Wards and establish his business. And he likes the layout. It works well for his business. So really what the proposal was then is still now. It's a proposal for a 6,000 square foot building, 2-floor, with the north end of the building being where the office will be. That'll be the second floor. You'll have second floor access into the office. Then if you look at sheet 3, which has the topography, you can see that the lot slopes down. And so we kind of follow that slope with the building. So the lower part of the building, the majority of the building on that easterly side will have 3 bay doors at ground level. So basically you come into the front of the building from Meeks Road, you'll have parking for that office area for employees as well as customers, guests. And then it slopes down that little access way, and there's a pretty substantial, generous parking area for equipment and access to the bay doors. And so that's at ground level. Those 3 bay doors lead into the majority of the workspace, and that's open to the ceiling. So it's basically open workspace. There is some space underneath the office area, and that'll probably just be for storage within the building. So the building, as before, will be served by its own on-site septic system. You can see that it's a concrete chambered pump system located in the southeast corner. We're going to propose a new well. There's a couple of old dug wells out there. They're going to be filled and capped, and we'll put a new artesian well in there to service the water supply for the building. Water supply needs for this building, there's only going to be 5 or 6 employees as there was before, so it's a minimum service for the septic system, about 300 gallons a day, and I wouldn't even expect it to even hit that number. As the original plan has, this still maintains. It's a comprehensive stormwater management plan. The design basically captures all the stormwater from the paved surfaces and directs it as a sheet flow into a large infiltration basin at the south end of the lot. And then we'll capture all the roof drain, the roof runoff rather, through a gutter system, and that'll all be directed to the same infiltration basin. So we're pretty successful in getting all the impervious area from Beach Road to run down the lot and into this infiltration basin. So the design worked out really well. Like I said, we kind of followed the contour originally with the design and layout that's going to be maintained with this design, and we get everything in and get the stormwater treated on site. There's been some allowances for landscaping. As you can see, we kept the layout fairly tight to the center of the lot. There's a pretty generous wooded buffer along the north and the easterly side, as well as some of the areas in the south. We'll have to do a little bit of tree clearing to get the infiltration basin in, and then we're somewhat exposed to the 125 side. So we're going to introduce a little bit of landscaping for the 125 side, just to have a little buffering from the highway. We're also going to introduce some landscaping. We're going to do a row of arborvitae on the north side of the driveway as you come in on Meeks Road, just to offer a little bit more buffering to that one residential property. And then, of course, the rest of the landscaping is to enhance the building and the aesthetics around the building. We have space for handicap parking, plenty of space for, like I said, office workers, customers, site workers, and then we have outdoor storage area for trucks and equipment. And so that's all maintained on a nice paved surface. We do have a little bit of a gravel area off the east side, and that's for the very occasional use of a tractor trailer, just so we can turn around internally on the lot and not be backing out on the Meeks Road. So it'll be able to come in, turn around, and then exit the property. And then all the traffic, as we had proposed before, is going to go directly out to 125 and not down Meeks Road. There's really no need for it. Cadence business is like most contractors. They store most of their equipment within the building. Very light maintenance and work will go on in there. There's going to be no hazardous materials. He may have the need to bring in a little bit of aggregate from time to time, maybe some landscaping material, things like that. It's only temporary. It comes in, they load it up, and out it goes. The majority of this business is off-site, and this just works out really well for storage, maintenance, and having a home base. Currently, he's here in Haverhill, and he's looking for business here in New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, and also some more room than what he has in Haverhill. So, as far as the application, only one state approval, and that was for the septic system. It was obtained prior, back in 2018. We resent that back to state. We now have that state approval. There's a couple of waivers. The only plan waiver is for internal landscaping within the parking area that was granted previously. We had a conditional use permit that was granted previously. We're asking for that again, consideration of that again for the use within the aquifer. And then the one that we didn't have last time it was the use was either, it wasn't noted in the zoning, and it wasn't prohibited in the zoning, so it was a special exception through the ZBA for is welding manufacturing. In this case, now that task has been put on the planning board, and so again, we have a use that's not allowed or disallowed in the zoning, so we've asked for a conditional use permit for that as well. And so I submitted that with the application. Any questions?
What kind of equipment? You said this is an excavating business?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have, like, I guess an excavator type
Yes,
thing?
so smaller size excavators. I'm not a large excavation contractor by any means. This is about I'm going on my 5th year in business now, so I'm by no means a big scale business. I have a couple small, mini excavators to get in the backyards, a couple skid steers, and stuff like that. None of it is, large scale by any means.
But you're hoping to grow?
Hoping, that's the goal, yes.
Right, so the reason why I'm asking this is that I don't know how high the doors are for the thing, but are you going to be keeping those in the building?
So the plan is, and how it works now is, us being a service business, is most of my equipment, to be honest, goes from job to job. I have a couple pieces that haven't been at the garage that I rent now in the last 2 or 3 years because, the goal is to always, be working and keep them moving from job to job. In the event that they were at this property, it wouldn't be for a long period of time, and they would all fit in the garage as well.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I'm asking about all that is that I know from experience that hydraulic systems are almost always leaking something, and So I would expect that the floor, the concrete floor of the building would have some kind of oil separation system collection, especially if you're doing any kind of maintenance in there, some way of containing hydraulics, especially with oils and fuels, diesel fuel, whatever, and making sure it's separated out and trapped and removed without putting it into the stormwater runoff system. So, do you have a plan for that in the building, or?
We weren't proposing floor drains in it, but we did have an oil water separator in the system outside. So if you washed any vehicles outside or anything like that, would be picked up in the structure that's at the end of the parking area. But we weren't proposing any sort of floor drains in the building at all.
So interior, if there was a spill, you would use like ready pickup?
Yes, yeah, we would, deal with it on site from there and stuff, and I don't get into a ton of maintenance. My business is excavation and moving dirt. A lot of the times, if a repair is made, to be honest, I bring it to, Chapel or some local, business that does the repairs there.
Do they do all your oil maintenance?
They do, yes, I don't plan on keeping any oil on site, any, fuels or anything like that. That's not the plan,
Yeah, because that would be part of our conditional use plan is I think it restricts the vehicle and equipment maintenance in the cover the aquifer protection zone. The good news is that it's zone B, which has a 2-acre requirement as opposed to zone A, which is a 3-acre requirement, and you obviously meet the 2-acre requirement. So that should be easy. Okay, I guess that was my question, mostly about the, is the equipment that's outside will be parked on the asphalt, then, right? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Glenn, could we have your comment?
Yeah, and can I just ask one separate, because of the discussion that was given by Charlie. I hate when you give me extra information because I don't want it, but you gave it anyway. So when you bring excavated materials on site, with stockpiles, where on here would they go?
I'd say typically a lot of times in my business, it's all, I don't plan on keeping large amounts here. Typically now what I do is, we load the trucks the day before, so that way in the morning we're ready to go. So our kind of intent here was, to have a small pile of, say, some stone for a job or something like that, where it would then get loaded in a dump truck and trucked off site. On that would probably be, in that gravel area. If that ever was a thing, with the storage of materials. Because like I said, for the majority now, what I've done in the past is it gets loaded on the truck the night before, where I buy all my materials from Tormeo Industries in Kingston, so I go there, the truck gets loaded, and we put all of our tools on the truck to be ready for the next day is the goal, yeah.
The only reason I brought it up is just to be totally transparent. I mean, he did tell me that he does bring it in very temporarily, small amounts. They may need it for landscaping work, septic system, something like that, and they'll have it there and then it's gone.
And I guess that's what I want to emphasize, is that the site plan itself doesn't show any bins for that material. And bins would mean it was going to be there all the time.
Right.
If it is as you just described, I think that the plan is fine. If there was an aspect that it was a constant thing, it should be something that gets reflected on the site plan.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, with the bins and stuff. I guess that is a good point, because bins would probably mean, long-term storage where it would, continue to get filled up and filled up. With that's not our thing, and most of my trucks, to be honest, are smaller. The biggest one I have doesn't hold more than 10 yards, so it's not like it's large amounts of, material that would ever be stored here.
Yeah. So it is all order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking 30-yard dump trucks. You're talking something much smaller.
Yes.
All right, thank you for that clarification. So my comments are that the applicant is proposing to build a new steel frame 2-story building with 3 bays to support a small office space and to be utilized for equipment and vehicle storage. This is the first public hearing for this proposed use, and the application is complete or invoking jurisdiction by the planning board. The following are my comments upon reviewing the plan prepared by SEC Associates, and they are as follows. The use of this facility as an excavation business location requires a conditional use permit from the planning board because it is neither expressly permitted nor prohibited in the C3 zoning district. And I gotta say, maybe the board feels differently about this. Maybe there is one allowance for personal services or something. The trouble with the ordinance is that, you know, we try to talk about all sorts of things, but the examples we give are so small, emphasized, that then when you get something like a contractor who works with big trucks and stuff, it doesn't seem to apply. And so I do believe that this is the cleanest way to ensure that nobody will ask this question again. But maybe we want to look at those permitted uses, because we've had tons of contractor buildings approved, and they do things very similar to what our applicant is hoping to do, and we really haven't talked about that use as specifically as we're doing here. And I probably wouldn't have, other than I knew the trouble we went through for the welding surface, and it was really a very difficult process. We've made it easier by having it be done by the planning board, but we may want to look at those definitions and make sure, or expand them to include all the things that we typically see out there that aren't really well described. But anyway, they do need to get that conditional use permit this evening. And the proposal also requires a conditional use permit from the planning board for commercial activity occurring in the Aquifer Protection District. It's a really simple conditional use permit, but it, again, has to be done this evening. The applicant is requesting a waiver for the parking lot construction requirements for landscaping within a lot based on the location of the parking in relation to the location of the proposed building. That's a long way around saying, I don't really think it's these kind of parking lots that it's intended for, but acting on it through a waiver will again mean that it's not an issue that somebody could want to repeal or something. So I think it's a good thing to do. Plan notes on sheet 1 should indicate that the site is partially located in the Wetlands Conservation District. You do indicate the other zoning districts, and since there is a portion of that vernal pool on this lot, we should include that as one of the zones that are demonstrated. The plan needs to show the 4K septic reserve area as well as the 2 test pits located within this area. And I'm sorry, I might not have looked at the package of the application close enough. Were there building elevations submitted?
Page 7 is a building elevation. Yeah, page 7 is a building elevation.
So in this very plan set, you have a building elevation, and I managed not to see that?
Last page, tucked kind of in the corner.
Is that what you're telling me? Because that's really embarrassing. There it is.
Building elevation.
Okay, this is the sheepish removal of comment number 6. And then you have this perimeter parking display access and drainage setback line, but that isn't reflective of the 25-foot easement that the highway department usually asks for.
No, isn't that it's the buffer from 125?
So
it has that kind of odd mix of restrictions.
Yeah, because the roadway, I don't think that the highway department, did they respond to this in any way?
Yes.
They have no comment. So if they don't want to use it, why am I asking for these?
I don't know. I'm just saying, this was sent to departments and none of
Yeah,
them.
none of them. In that case, you can disregard number 7 as well.
Okay.
Because if they don't care about it, I don't care about it.
Okay, I mean, if it's something that the board.
We typically ask for it,
Yeah.
but it is typically a request of the highway department. So.
Could I go back to one of your comments?
Yes.
About the 4K?
Yes.
We did 2 test pits on the lot, and if you look at page.
I did see that they're really spaced.
Yes, one's owned by the infiltration.
They're really far apart.
Yeah, and I think we might even dug one, but I don't think I recorded it, just to make sure that we weren't gonna get in the ledge over by the building, and everything was very consistent. It's all outwash soils, Group 1 soil stuff. So I only did one with the septic system. Do you need a second test pit in that area, or can we just show the 4K in there?
We would need it unless you ask for a waiver of the second test pit.
Got a machine handy? We'll do your test pit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got a machine.
I asked the right guy.
It is easier if they have the equipment you need. So those are my comments.
Thank you. We have Dennis's comments. Dear members of the planning board, at your request, I have conducted an engineering review of the above referenced site plan. I based this review on the following document received by email on April 25th, 2025. 7-sheet plan set for 1 Meeks Road, Kingston, New Hampshire, tax map R13, lot 7, applicant Connell Excavating, LLC, land owned by Jennifer Lynn Rogers Ward, plans by SEC and Associates dated April 21st, 2025. After review of the above information, I offer the following comments and recommendations for the board to consider at this time. 1, this plan is very similar to the plan reviewed in 2018. I would recommend that a note be added stating that a pre-construction meeting will be held with the owner, applicant, site contractor, and town officials prior to the start of site construction. 2, I would recommend that a guardrail-type fence be added to the front of the southerly parking spaces to ensure that no snow and sediments be pushed into the infiltration basin. Add detail. 3, Article 908.16.3.21 and 908.16.6. If it hasn't already, a stormwater management inspection and maintenance document must be recorded with the registry, in the Registry of Deeds. And 4, site construction restoration bond should be submitted for review and approval by the board. The bond amount should be in place prior to the beginning of construction. This completes my review of the project. Respectfully submitted, Dennis Quintel. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none? Oh, yes.
Is that typical for private site construction bond? I don't recall that we did that back in 2018 in Kelly.
It's fairly common.
Okay.
It's usually bonding for the
just restoration
and for the stormwater management devices that they get installed properly. And it's something you typically work with Dennis separate from the board.
Okay, that ends our discussion. Do we have any public comment? See no public comment.
This guy's looked angry the whole time. He's got to have something to say.
No, his back's probably killing him.
Seeing no public comment, we will close public comment. Okay. Any other comments from the planning board? If not, do we have a motion to accept jurisdiction?
I will make a motion to invoke jurisdiction.
Further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. Jurisdiction is invoked. We have some waiver requests. The first waiver is for the mandatory preliminary review. Dear members of the board, please accept this letter as a formal request to waive site plan review, Regulation Article 904.4, 904.4A, requiring a mandatory preliminary review. This is an application for a previously approved site plan with no proposed site changes. This proposal is intended to comply with all applicable zoning and site regulations except where waived. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to waive the mandatory preliminary review as requested.
I'll second that, and for discussion, just ask the planners if you know something.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I'd say is we need that added to the plan. The waiver, because we ask that all waivers show on the plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you have the one for the,
okay, that's fine.
for the other waiver for the parking regulations, but you don't have the mandatory.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Second waiver, dear members of the board, please accept this letter as a formal request to waive Site Review Regulation Article 904.5B, Site Plan Fee Schedule A, requiring the establishment of a $5,000 engineering review account, and to accept a $2,500 engineering review account instead. This is an application seeking approval for the previously approved site plan for the new owner and site operator. There are no changes to the layout proposed. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the reduced amount for the engineering review fee pending any weigh-in from our town planner. I don't see any on.
No, I think that's absolutely appropriate, and that's not one.
Do we have a? Okay.
You don't have to put that on the plate. It's part of the application process.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Third, please accept this letter as a formal request to waive the Town of Kingston Site Plan Regulation 904.15.B.10.A and B, requiring that interior landscaping islands totaling 10% of the northerly parking area and 8% of the easterly parking area be provided. The intent of the regulation is to not only enhance the aesthetic value of the site, but to provide additional shading and windbreaks for large parking areas such as shopping malls. For this particular use, a small commercial site for a contractor's business, the northerly parking area for the employees' visitors is very limited in size. Landscaping will be provided adjacent to the parking area, and strict adherence to the regulation would require greater site disturbance and removal of more of the natural existing buffer. The easterly parking area is dedicated space for truck access, loading limited in size, and significant natural buffer loading and maneuvering space with parking at the periphery. Again, this space is limited in size, and a significant natural buffer exists surrounding the space. Strict adherence to the regulation would require greater site disturbance and removal of more of the natural existing buffer. Thank you for your consideration. Do we have a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion. I just want to double check, but my understanding from Glenn's comment was that you are in agreement with this, and then I will move that we accept the waiver to Article 904.15B10A and B.
And I'll second that. And for discussion purposes, I agree with your earlier comments that I don't think this is the type of parking lot that we're intended. We're talking about like a mall or a shopping or center where, you know, your customers coming in that expect something like that. It's also visible from the road. This is hidden. You don't want trucks backing into trees. So.
Okay, the next waiver is for the conditional use. Oh, excuse me. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving right along. A little faster than I should be. The next waiver, please accept this letter as a formal request to waive the Town of Kingston Site Plan Regulation 904.15B10A and B, requiring that that's the last one. Request for a conditional use permit to the terms of Article 110, Section 110.5 of the Kingston zoning ordinances to allow for the operation of contractor's business at tax map R13, Lot 7, 1 Meeks Road. Please accept this letter as a formal request to grant a conditional use permit for the proposed use within the Commercial 3 zone as required by the Town of Kingston zoning ordinance 110.5A. The conditions are met as follows. No detriment to property values in this vicinity or change in the essential characteristics of any area, including residential neighborhoods or business and industrial districts, on account of the location or scale of the buildings and other structures, parking area, access ways, odor, smoke, gas, dust, or other pollutant, noise, glare, heat, vibration, or unsightly outdoor storage of equipment, vehicles, or other materials. This is a proposal to establish a contractor's business at the above site. Prior to this application, an application for a welding manufacturing facility had been granted by a special exception by the Board of Adjustment on October 9th, 2014, and on December 14th, 2017 for this site. A site plan was developed and approved by this board for that purpose. The current applicant, Connell Excavation LLC, is so similar in daily operation to the previously granted use that there is no need to modify or make changes to that approved site plan to accommodate the business. As before, this is a commercial 3-zoned property with frontage on Route 125 and Meeks Road. This proposed business is a small family-owned contractor's business where most of their business is performed off-site. The owner will utilize the space for office space and vehicle storage where only light maintenance will be performed. The only outside storage will be a temporary storage of small amounts of aggregate. Outside vehicle parking will be on the pavement as shown. Access to the site is from a driveway at Meeks Road, located close to the intersection at Route 125. All required buffers have been met and exceeded, and site coverage of impervious area is only 20%, well below the allowed 50%. All zoning and site plan regulations that apply to this business will be maintained. In all, the site use is considerably less impacting than the full-service gas station, store, and takeout service facility directly across Route 125 and within the same commercial 3 zone. 2, no creation of traffic safety hazard or substantial increase in the level of traffic congestion in the vicinity. The business will utilize the same previously approved entrance at Meeks Road that has direct access to Route 125. The entrance meets the town's site requirements and is designed for the unrestricted access to and from the site. 3, no unreasonable excess demand on municipal services, including but not limited to water, sewer, waste disposal, police, fire protection, and schools. The proposed building will be served by its own individual sewage disposal system and on-site well. 4, no unreasonable hazard to the public or adjacent property on account of potential fire, explosion, or release of toxic chemicals. There will be no storage of hazardous or flammable materials on site. 5, notification of the hearing will be provided to the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Board of Selectmen. The application has been publicly noticed. Thank you for your consideration. Motion?
All right, I'll move that due to the more than 50-foot vegetated buffer with a residential area and the parking being hidden, the outdoor parking being hidden, and there's, let's see, all the other requirements being met for the reasons cited, and there's no hazmat stored on the facility that meets the requirements for the conditional use permit.
Second?
Second.
Any further questions from the board? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that again is unanimous. And it looks like the last conditional use permit is for the Aquifer Protection District. Please accept this letter as a formal request to grant a conditional use permit for the proposed use within the Aquifer Protection District as required by the Town of Kingston zoning ordinance 201.4G. The questions have been met as follows. A, the proposed use will not detrimentally affect the quality of the groundwater contained in the aquifer by directly contributing to pollution or by increasing the long-term susceptibility of the aquifer to utilize the building for office space and vehicle storage where only light maintenance will be performed. The only outside storage will be temporary storage of small amounts of aggregate. Outside vehicle parking will be on the pavement as shown. The site has been designed with a comprehensive and detailed stormwater management plan. This plan captures all site runoff and directs it to a sedimentation basin designed for pre-treatment collection of sediments from the runoff. In addition, a deep sump hooded catch basin located before the sedimentation basin will capture any possible oils or contaminants for an extra level of protection. All disturbed areas will be loamed and seeded, and the site will be stabilized prior to operation. Additionally, an operations and maintenance schedule has been provided as well. 2, the proposed use requires only a minimal amount of water use to sustain the operation. An approved disposal system design has been provided showing a maximum of 300 gallons per day usage. Site coverage of impervious area is only 20%, well below the allowed 50%, allowed with on-site stormwater recharge, provided a generous recharge area, providing a generous recharge area. As such, there will be no significant reduction in the long-term volume of water contained in the aquifer. The proposed use will not discharge wastewater other than typical domestic waste. Floor drains are not proposed. The proposed use complies with all other applicable sections of the ordinance. As stated, the septic system is designed for a flow of 300 gallons per day maximum. A hydrogeological study is not warranted. Thank you for your consideration. Do we have a motion?
So we have to go through each of those individually, correct?
In the past, we have.
We always have in the past. But
Yep.
they've done such a good job of
Responding.
to each one.
Well, we've read it into the record.
Okay.
Why don't we just do a quick
For the reasons cited?
vote? Yeah. Or we could vote on them individually very quickly, and then vote on the entirety. What's your desire?
If it has no impact on, this is a binding motion, then I'm fine to go the expedited route. I know that historically we've done each of them individually, and I don't want that to have any impact on.
Does that have an impact on,
Legitimacy?
It will not.
okay.
Then can we do this all the time?
All those in favor of granting the conditional use permit? Do we have
You
a
have a motion.
motion?
She's just doing that, right?
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
let's do
make a
motion.
motion to approve the conditional use permit requested to Article 2014G of the aquifer protection.
And we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it for the reasons cited.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of okay. Opposed? Last one's approved. All right.
Also, we have to put them into describing how they're meeting those conditions.
Exactly, yeah.
But Charlie has done this so many times that he comes prepared.
He already had that thing.
Thank you,
suddenly
Charlie,
got
for
got
that.
earlier, so I was like, oh, okay.
I feel like you found us all about 20 minutes tonight, so thank you.
Was there one more that we needed tonight? Was there something else we needed? That was it? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, are we ready for a motion to accept?
I would like to make a motion to approve, what am I approving here? The proposed site plan review application at 1 Meeks Road with the following conditions. That the waiver for the mandatory preliminary review be added to the plan. That Glenn's comment number 4, which is plan notes on sheet 1, should indicate that the site is partially located in the Wetlands Conservation District. And number 5, the plan needs to show the $4,000 septic, $4,000, listen to me. That are gonna be dug by the applicant. As well as Dennis's items number 1, 2, 3, and 4 all be included as a condition of the approval.
I have one other, I can add the conditional use for the use note. On
Yep.
sheet 2.
And the, yes. Oh,
A little closer to it.
Just have it closer, Charlie.
It's on.
oh.
You need it closer. Adam couldn't hear you.
Stop voting, guys.
So that was, I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
The conditional use permit for the use?
Yes.
That wasn't one of the notes on the cover sheet, and I'll add that it was granted.
Okay. That's my motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
Do we need to put the pre-construction meeting on the plan? No?
That's one of his comments. Oh,
Okay. And the guardrail?
Yeah, she just said that all
Okay.
four of them.
All right, all 4, we're good. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to Kingston.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Hope you need bigger trucks.
May have to get a sign up from the highway department. The next alternative said, you know, as you come over the hill, it says trucks entering, because on both sides now.
Thank you.
Oh, God, nobody reads those.
Good luck, guys.
And this leads us to board business. So the first item of board business is an inquiry from Charlie Zilch and property owner Ray Durbin regarding 3 Door Road, map R3, lot 26, zone C3 aquifer. Mr. Durbin would like to add 2 more apartments to an existing apartment building. There are 2 buildings and 6 units total. The footprint or structure will not be expanding. They're looking for direction from the planning board. What they'd like to know is, can they go directly to the planning board on this, or will the proposal require them to go to the ZBA? These buildings were constructed in 1970 and 1979 and existed before the C3 ordinance was adopted in 2005. See Articles 110.2C and 110.4A.
It's, I don't think, it says here that a residential use is existing at the time, may be continued and is expanded as long as the use remains residential.
Right.
I don't think that that's,
So here's my take on this.
okay.
You're the board, so you can tell me if I'm considering this way too stringent, but that reads that those uses that existed at the time of becoming non-conforming are those that are grandfathered, as the way we call that out. My concern is, that's fine. Those units can be expanded. They can be made 3-bedroom units if they're 2-bedroom units. But new units constitute new construction. Whether it's in the building or not, it's new construction. And that's what's prohibited in the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance doesn't, the zoning ordinance says for anything that's existing, that's fine. That's non-conforming and can be improved and expanded as it was. So if it's 6 units, it stays 6 units, but you can improve it and you can make sure that it doesn't become decrepit. But you can't add new units. That's like saying if you have a non-conforming store, you can build a second non-conforming store. And that's not the concept that's associated with grandfathering.
Right, but in this case, where it's, the ordinance doesn't normally have that line in there about saying that a non-conforming use can be expanded, as long as it remains residential, but those, it usually says non-conforming uses can be continued, because that's the way the state law is.
Improved.
Right.
Well, just continued.
Well, the
yeah,
state law for
is
non-conforming uses say that they can be improved.
Right.
And they can follow a natural progression of the use. And that's due to the state law that was, I mean, the Supreme Court case
right.
in Hampton about arcades. A pinball arcade in 1970 wanted to start using video machines, and the town said, no, that's not, you're non-conforming as a pinball operator. But the Supreme Court said, no, there has to be the allowance for natural progression.
Yeah.
And so that has defined for the state what natural progression is. From my perspective, what we have grandfathered here are a number of residential units. And those residential units should be allowed to be expanded and improved so that they don't become decrepit. But to say that means you can add more units without ZBA relief, to me, doesn't seem like you're following the rules for non-conforming uses.
But, yeah, I believe that would normally be the case where you wouldn't have to get ZBA approval for expansion of a non-conforming use. But this is unusual, this is unique in it, that it says residential use, means that use can be expanded, so it can grow from 10 apartments to 20 apartments, because you're not changing the use, you're expanding it, and it's just telling you specifically in the ordinance that it can be expanded, so you don't really need to go to the ZBA if it's written in there. That's normally not written in, that you can expand a use.
And it calls out residential uses specifically. So I think if these apartments were used for anything else, that we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Exactly. If you had a store, in your example, and you wanted to add a second store, build onto it and add a second store, that wouldn't be allowed, and because none of the ordinances in the commercial zone allow you to do that, pre-existing non-conforming use. If it was like in the residential zone, you had a store that pre-existed. But someone decided that was, and all you say construction.
That you do this by a vote.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So that I can just step away and say, even though I don't agree, the board has made a determination, and that will allow Mr. Durbin to go forward.
So plain devil's advocate, if I might.
Yeah.
If this were a home, because there are a number of homes on Route 125, and they wanted to put in an ADU. ADUs are not specifically called out by state law in a commercial zone, but they wanted to add an ADU. It's more or less the same thing. You're expanding the residential use in a non-conforming way, and I can't picture us not permitting an ADU to someone that wanted to put one in a commercial zone on a building that already existed with a residential use in that zone. So I can see where it says expanded, if it said continued and maintained, that would be one thing, but continued and expanded says to me that they can expand the use there.
In fact, it doesn't include maintained, so you can expand it. But
you can't maintain it.
You can't maintain it.
But no, maintain use falls under, as Glenn said, the state law.
It's just natural progression.
But you use the example of construction. Well, all expansion of, which is what they're calling about, requires, even if you just expanded a single-family home into a bigger single-family home, which would be permitted.
I absolutely believe that says that any unit that existed at the time that the ordinance made them non-conforming are allowed to be expanded. That's what I think that says.
If it says uses.
You're taking it to say, doesn't matter how many units there were in 1993 when we passed the new ordinance. With that statement, you can go from having 6 units to having 30 units.
It depends on how you define expansion. You've got 6 units, and let's say they're 2-bedroom units, you can make it 3. They're really going to take those 6 units and make it 8, which makes them smaller and more dense housing, which is going to impact septic, water, whatever. We don't know.
Well,
Parking is another one.
Prove that.
Yeah, anything more than a duplex has to be, would have to come here. Well, it's in commercials.
They've got to go to they got to get it approved by the building inspector, so they're going to have the parking and the septic has to be approved.
Yeah, septic and water will have to be provided adequately.
So he's just looking for direction.
Wouldn't they have to go to the planning board, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So not directly.
Right, they can
Because
come
it's more
directly
than
to the
2
planning
units,
board
so-
to expand it.
I think this might be the first time that I've respectfully disagreed with your assessment here, but
As I said,
if this said residential units existing at the time, but it says residential uses, and so I don't know that we can restrict.
So, as you did, I sat in on those conversations in 2005, and I remember that this was a real bone of contention, because some people thought residential uses should remain in 125 regardless. People should be able to put new houses there and everything else. Other people thought there should be none at all unless they were associated with the business. And this was sort of a compromise in the middle, but I cannot remember exactly what they had said about whether or not it seemed to me that you could actually expand by construction from the discussion that we had back then, because we're talking 20 years ago. That we said, it was a lot of discussion on that. We spent a whole summer, 2 meetings a month getting through this.
Do we set a precedent with this, saying your 6 can become 30 units?
Well, it can't become 30 units, because to become 30 units, they've got to come before the planning board, and they've got to do a whole, because you can't put 30 units in those buildings. You can only put 2 more.
Could they put another building?
Only by coming to us and getting permission, but I don't know. Yeah.
I believe that you're saying yes.
How are they adding the apartments, though? Are they dicing up what's already there?
Yeah.
It looks like, if I read it, that they're adding 2 more apartments. So
In the
there's a
buildings.
building, so they're just gonna add 2 more in. Are they gonna make them smaller, or do they have room to go up?
empty spaces.
There's
We do
empty
have-
space.
We do have the person here
Okay.
if you need to have more questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the buildings are, there's space within the buildings.
And
It's
Door Road
unused.
goes into Torromeo, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna vote no on this, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have so many complaints from Jericho Drive about what's happening at Torromeo. I don't wanna hear about them anymore. If you're gonna renovate those buildings to allow 2 more units, you're gonna have new people moving in, and you're gonna have more complaints. Telling you right now.
I see what you're saying, but I think denying somebody, if you send this to the ZBA and they're gonna look at this and say, you don't need to be here, or whatever, I'm not sure if that's what they would say, but the bottom line is that if you're denying a right that you have in your zoning ordinance to someone because potential for future occupants to be complaining about blasting, you could say fair warning is that you should notify any of your tenants that.
That never happens.
I know it doesn't, but I don't think it's a good reason to deny it.
I don't think it's a reason that would hold up in court.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm assuming you guys are gonna pass it, and I can still vote my conscience.
Of course you can.
We told you so.
I mean, we may have the 2005 minutes if you want me to scour them if it was for the conversation.
And we didn't do minutes the same way we do minutes these days, back then.
I don't think you'll find much guidance there.
No, there were a good 20 people in all of those meetings. They couldn't even fit them in the room.
So Robin, I just asked you to make a motion.
I will make a motion that the request to add 2 additional units to the property at 3 Door Road go directly to the planning board and not require approval from the ZBA.
Any further discussion? Bob? Chris? Paul? Any further discussion?
No, it's okay. You didn't really say anything.
I just read it, that's all.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I take it you're ready for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is a 6-1 vote. That's fine.
I like your style, Ellie.
You can say I told you so. When they come to you, say, there's a lot of money over here.
Okay.
Good night, Charlie.
Night, Charlie.
Night, Charlie.
You too.
Do we have a motion to accept the April 15 minutes as printed?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
She's talking to herself.
All those in favor? Any other business that needs to come before the board?
My quest for expediency knows no bounds.
Parliamentary procedure be damned.
And historically, we had a plan committee the other day. On an ADU.
Oh, is your mic on?
No.
We had a plan come in with an ADU the other day. And I'm sure it's gonna come here. Do I wait for that to come here to have this conversation, or can I discuss it now?
Is it the one on Church Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, don't talk about it.
Okay.
Because they've already applied, they are coming to us.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a confession. I have a note here that I was supposed to get Glenn comments on the RFP for the plan update. Is it too late to send those to you, because I have some?
No,
Okay, so I'll email those to you.
it's never too late.
And if anybody else has the comments, just send them to Glenn and.
I think you're supposed to send them to me and I consolidate them, but if
Yes.
Glenn wants them, he can.
No, send them to Robin.
I can send them to both. Send them to
And we'll
both of us.
definitely have a discussion on that the next meeting. And the other thing we need to talk about is the CIP. Did the committee get together? Did anybody organize their first committee meeting?
No, we've not met yet, but the submittal packages went out.
Okay. And do we have a meeting organized for them?
No, but I'll set one up.
Okay. If you would, please, thank you.
Do more?
Yeah, go
We have
ahead.
one more thing, right?
Well, we do, yeah. So we have 6 applications for June 17th. Because of the extra week in May, I can possibly move them to the 3rd, because we already have the CJ&J. So I didn't know if you guys are okay, if a couple of these want to move to the 3rd, that we pull them back. Other than that, we have 6 applications.
6 applications is too much for one night. I think if we could move some to the 3rd, that would be great.
And then we're looking into July, because we
Right.
have a meeting first, so.
So we really have to move it early,
If we
otherwise
can.
it would be middle of July before we could have a meeting, because we don't have one. For those of you that are new, we do not have a meeting the first week in July,
Or the first one in September.
or the first one in September. So over the summer, we only have 1 July, 2 August, and 1 September.
So are you all in agreement, it's okay to move a couple of these if we can?
Yep.
I'm not sure if they want to, but can we try? We'll
I
try.
think number 1 wants to.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, and maybe like one of these. But I looked at the pile on my table really quick, I'm like, 6 applications is a lot for one night.
Don't put number 1 first on the agenda, because I have to recuse myself from that one, and Robin, we'll make sure Robin's here too.
Yeah, so I'll see who's even available and I'll do it.
Although she was here wicked early.
Well, I warned her.
Wicked early.
Wicked early, like 30 seconds before.
I would say between 30 and 45 seconds before the meeting. Wicked early.
Okay. Do we have anything else to come before the meeting? We are adjourned.